Well, hi everyone. I've got an update for you. Of course, everyone in Rhode Island is aware that it's the 2-year anniversary as of yesterday. I'm recording this video on Friday, December 12th, 2025. It's the 2-year anniversary of the emergency closure and subsequent removal of the Westbound Washington Bridge, I-195 over the Seekonk River. And there's been some new developments. I want to cover a couple of the key things here today. So, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee and Rhode Island DOT Director Peter Alviti have been making the rounds of various broadcast news outlets touting the fact that they've completed the complete demolition of the westbound Washington Bridge about a week earlier than the December 15th, 2025 deadline. Whether that's actually true or not, I am skeptical about, and I've got some additional information that I'm going to cover in a future video. But what I really want to cover today is the rather surprise announcement. I don't think he intended to reveal this information, but Director Alviti made an appearance on WPRO, that Gene Valicente segment. Usually it's about potholes and traffic lights, but occasionally there be statements made by Director Alviti about the condition or the overall situation with the westbound Washington Bridge replacement project. And he revealed some rather shocking information, and I'm going to go over that here. Now, one thing I'll note, both Director Alviti and Governor McKee become quite incensed when people compare the replacement of the westbound Washington Bridge in Rhode Island with the apparent advanced state of the replacement of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And of course, that bridge collapsed several months after the westbound Washington Bridge had to be closed on an emergency basis. They're vastly different projects, but for whatever reason, the people in Rhode Island government just get incensed when people make the comparison that's saying, hey, well, they're doing so much better than you guys. Can't you get your act together? And because of that defensiveness, this information that was revealed yesterday, I'm going to go over it. Kiewit Infrastructure Company is involved with the Progressive Design Build replacement project for the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland. Now, I'm just going to play this audio segment from the Ask the DOT segment on WPRO yesterday, and I'm going to circle back on it.
We had the same opportunity with the same contractor to sign a hasty sole source contract in 4 months just to be able to politically say, oh, look how quickly we got a contractor on board.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it right there. He just said that Rhode Island DOT had an opportunity to sign a contract for the replacement of the westbound Washington Bridge in Providence within 4 months of having to close the bridge, just as Maryland officials signed Kiewit to a contract for the replacement of their bridge.
That contractor now has upped the price by more than double. It's $3.5 billion because of the kind of hasty, kind of sole source contract they signed with them. Anybody could do that.
Okay, well, I think it's a little unfair to suggest that this apparent price increase was solely due to Kiewit's improper or inaccurate planning or estimating. I'll come back to this in a second, but let's continue on here.
We took a more deliberate approach, and yes, it took more time, but we now have a fixed price with a fixed schedule that both are guaranteed to be delivered, and the best company in the world delivering it.
Okay, I want to comment on Alviti saying all the time, and the Governor McKee has said that, oh, we've got the best contractor in the world, bridge contractor, replacing this bridge. And what they're referring to in actuality is an E&R ranking, engineering news record, that has Walsh Construction as the top bridge builder in the country, but that's based on dollar volume. That's not based on quality. And I'm not saying there's an issue with the quality with Walsh Construction, but it's misleading to say that they're the number one bridge builder. They're certainly big, and in terms of dollar volume, they're number one. But he's implying, I think, a little bit more than is actually the case here.
So we may not have taken a more aggressive approach, but that aggressive approach is costing people in Maryland $3.5 billion more and 2 years late, coming out of the gate, and they haven't even started building it yet.
Okay.
We here in Rhode Island have everything in place. We have a fixed contract, a secure contract, and a safe contract with the best bridge builder in the country with a guaranteed price. That makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, one thing too I'll mention, the selection with Walsh Construction was over the competing proposal from American Bridge. And American Bridge was actually number one from a technical and schedule standpoint compared to Walsh Construction. Walsh Construction was awarded the Washington Bridge replacement because they were so much cheaper. They were $46 million lower than American Bridge in their pricing. And in fact, Walsh could have bid another $20 million and still gotten the job. And so that's a lot of money being left on the table. I'm going to cover more about this aspect in a future video.
Okay.
Anybody could sign a hasty contract for political expediency. That sounds to me the way that she would like to do business. That's not the way that we do business in this administration.
All right.
We
She
take a
has come at you.
deliberate,
You have
we take a
responded to her.
deliberate approach, and we deliver our projects 100% on time, on budget for the last 2 years at DOT.
Well, he's been the director of Rhode Island DOT for nearly 11 years now, since January 2015.
So
Okay.
I don't know where she's getting her information, but she's using false claims. And that speaks volumes for her.
Well, that's a good way to get the director of the DOT as well as the governor of Rhode Island wound up, is being critical of how they've handled the Washington Bridge replacement project, and certainly when you compare them to Maryland. And what Director Alviti is referring to here is that the latest estimate, which came out in mid-November, at a 70% design level for the Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement, they're at $5.2 billion when previously their estimate was $1.7 billion. So that's where he gets the $3.5 billion extra cost. I don't think it's defensible. I don't know exactly what all went into it. It's a vastly different job. I know the Coast Guard had additional requirements for raising the deck height over the Patapsco River, but I don't think the Maryland officials or people in the federal government have really vetted why this project has ballooned in price. So that's the current design concept for the Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement. It's a cable-stayed bridge, twice the length of the Washington Bridge. Washington Bridge conceptual design shows a much simpler structure, which is appropriate for the location and what's needed there. I'm not defending what's going on in Maryland at all with their Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement project. I did a whole video about that if you want to check it out. But let's go back to what Director Alviti's referring to in this Ask the DOT segment. He said that they got a proposal from Kiewit early on, this would have been in 2024, to just jump right in and start working on the design build replacement for the Washington Bridge. And this is in response to Rhode Island DOT's request for information. If you recall, the original request for proposal for replacing this bridge was issued the end of April 2024, and nobody bid on it because it was a ridiculously constructed contract document. It was unrealistic in terms of schedule. People didn't have enough time to prepare a cost estimate and proposal. There's just many things wrong with it. But Kiewit said, hey, we didn't bid on this original RFP, but we believe that a qualifications-based progressive design build procurement, which is what they're doing for the Francis Scott Key Bridge, offers RiDOT the best chance of success in delivering a functional bridge. So on. And if you go towards the bottom of the second page of their response to this request for information, Kiewit indicates, we expressed our interest in partnering with RiDOT through our submittal of an alternative technical concept, ATC, and participation in a one-on-one meeting on June 12, 2024. This meeting was beneficial to our understanding of the technical scope and RiDOT's development of project documentation. We continue to engage with RiDOT through the procurement period, submitting over 50 RFI questions via the RFP dictated process in order to further our understanding of the project technical concepts and commercial terms. These RFIs also identified certain challenges associated with contract terms that made the project unbiddable for Kiewit. Procurement and construction schedule were not achievable, inequitable distribution of scope and risk items, and lack of clearly defined scope design criteria. So obviously, Rhode Island DOT did not take Kiewit up on their offer to pursue a directly negotiated contract for a design build replacement under this alternative technical concept. And instead, Rhode Island DOT lost an entire year. Originally, this contract was going to be awarded in June 2024 for the replacement of the bridge to be completed in 2026. And instead, the contract wasn't awarded until July 2025 with an estimated completion date of November 2028. So Rhode Island DOT lost an entire year in awarding this contract relative to what they wanted to do to begin with. So my question is, why wasn't the public made aware that Kiewit had provided this offer? Why wasn't the state government, the legislature in Rhode Island made aware that this offer had been made by Kiewit? I think in the interest of transparency, which really doesn't exist with Rhode Island DOT's management, in my opinion, this information should have been disclosed. And I've submitted an APRA request to obtain Kiewit's alternative technical concept proposal. I'll be very interested to see what the price and schedule was, or whatever it was that they offered the DOT, and get to the bottom of why Rhode Island DOT rejected Kiewit's proposal. Now, it seemed that the timing of Kiewit's offer was likely sometime between February 2024 and June of 2024. There was a lot going on during this time. You had this VN report, which again was initially leaked to the media. Rhode Island DOT didn't proactively offer this information to the public, but this report basically indicated that there were a lot of structural problems with the Westbound Washington Bridge and suggested that a repair option might have been problematic versus a replacement. Then we also had the WJE, the West Jenny Elsner evaluation of why the post-tension anchor rods broke, as well as other aspects of the forensic evaluation of the condition of that bridge. And this was all going on in the February to April timeframe. And then, as we know, April 30th, 2024, Rhode Island DOT issued their initial request for proposal with bids due back in June of 2024, and nobody responded with a proposal. So I think this is a very interesting development. I think the people of Rhode Island deserve to know exactly what was going on with Rhode Island DOT and why they rejected Kiewit's technical proposal. And also, did they get technical proposals for a bridge replacement or cost proposals from other people, other companies interested in replacing this bridge? I think that's another great question that should be asked. Well, I'll continue to follow this story as I have for 2 years now. So with that, I want to send a shout out to those of you who have contributed to buy me a coffee. That's one of the better ways to support this channel. I also want to send a shout out to the channel members who typically preview these videos 1 or more days in advance of them being made public. And I also want to thank those of you who have contributed to Super Thanks and left comments to these videos. So stay tuned, everyone.